Hey everybody, you join me in the evening. I have some time to kill because Reno's at her Japanese class. Just popped into Tesco's quickly. I met the owner of, I'm going to guess it's this machine because it is a Diablo. Nice to meet you, mate. And thank you very much for the support of Patreon. Yeah, as I say, I've got some time to kill. I'm out on the XJ6. Where's the time? I've got an hour or so. Might head into Portsmouth. Unfortunately, the roads are actually a little bit damp because it wasn't raining earlier, but it's just like this continual mist. And the problem with that is that always happens. You're gonna. So I thought I'd quickly sort of give my two penneth on the new highway code rules. I'm sure you've seen there's many of them, and the government has done a really top-notch job of letting everyone know exactly what those are, even though driving instructors are complaining that they haven't even got like a data sheet to explain all the changes. Thankfully, most of these things aren't a ticketable offence. It's more of a guideline at this point in time with things, and to be honest with you, most of the things that they've pointed out or changed are more like a reinforcement of what you probably should have done anyway, opposed to, you know, some ridiculous rule. The hierarchy of road users is interesting, basically to say that the top of the chain is the pedestrian, so everyone should be looking after pedestrians, then it's the cyclists, then you've got horse riders somewhere between cyclists and motorcyclists and cars. I will note, quite a lot of the people who've been talking about this seems to, when they talk about vulnerable road users, always say cyclists and pedestrians and horses. I know some people think that motorcycles are asking for, you know, you're asking for it basically. But we are humans too, and these vehicles exist, and it would be nice to be thought that we actually exist. You know, we're at least worth mentioning as a statistic of being more, 16 times more likely to die on the road, and most of the time that is not by the hand of the rider, I don't think. As much as people would like to say it's always speed and stuff like that, no, I don't think it is. I think most of the time it is people just pulling out on us because they're unobservant and don't expect to look for bikes. Have no sources on that. I'd have to, you know, it would be interesting to see a breakdown of, you know, the figures. But anyway, I digress. I think generally the rules are fine. You know, if someone's, one of the things, for instance, is if you're about to turn into a side road. In the past, if someone was already crossing, you would have stopped and let them go across because if they're already in the road, they have right of way. However, if they were waiting at the side of the road, you wouldn't have had to let them in. Nowadays, you do. Whereas in the past, if there were that side junction you were about to turn into, you would have been able to just go on. Now you should wait. But the thing is, the words so often with all these guidelines is should and if it is safe to do so. I mean, here is a good example. Two people cycling down the middle of the road. They now have a right to do that. Before, it was suggested that they should stay, you know, within half a metre of the curb sort of thing. Well, that's now the sort of definite suggestion with the if you want to ride in the middle of the road, you can ride in the middle of the road. Just circling back a moment to, you know, where I was saying about how if there's a pedestrian off to a side turning, say that I wanted to turn in here and they were there, about to cross, I'd have to let them go. If there was a truck up my butt, so if I tried to stop in that place, they would have hit me, I don't need to stop. There's no expectation to stop. It is if it is safe to do so. Now, I'm really glad that the UK laws have a lot of if it's safe to do so, because it leaves it down to you to make a decision. And I like it when humans have been made to make decisions. You know, if the decision makes sense, even if something went wrong, at least you can say, well, I was doing it because of X, Y, Z, rather than, you know, just being an idiot. My only concern with that is that, say for instance, you're coming out to one of those side turnings and someone's about to walk across it to continue on the pavement, and you stop to let them out. I'm thinking more about car drivers than bikers here, because, you know, we can look over our shoulder car drivers, you know, you've got to use your mirror, you've got to see what you can, but you're within a car, you have a disadvantage. If, for instance, you're stopped to let that person walk across, as they walk across, a cyclist comes up behind you and goes, yeah, I'm just going to nip up the inside of them, just as you decide to turn in, you know, that's something that can happen. Now, of course, that will be on the driver still, because they should have checked that it was clear to pull across. It's always down. It's, you know, these rules are simple. It's common sense stuff, and it just basically falls onto who should have been paying attention at the time as to who will be found at fault if something goes wrong. So most of these changes don't seem to, you know, mean anything really, I don't think, too much. However, if people choose to be a little bit dumb about this and just go, well, I'm allowed to cycle in the middle of the road now, so I'm just going to cycle in the middle of the road everywhere. Yeah, that's probably not the smartest idea ever. Now, as I say, apparently you have a complete right to do so, but it would seem, from common sense perspective, that you probably wouldn't want to do that, because, you know, you're in the middle of the road, say it's a 40, you're doing, what, 10, 15 maybe. It doesn't matter who's right if you're underneath a car, and it doesn't matter who's right if you're going to get people who are angry and are going to use their car as a way to intimidate you, which of course they shouldn't do. Of course they shouldn't. You're perfectly within your rights to cycle in the middle of the road. I'm just saying, we don't live in a perfect world, and you will have people be aggressive towards you, whether the rules have changed or not. So I think everyone can take these rules on board and just, you know, just in short, look out for each other and don't be a knob. Pointless. UK roads, utterly pointless. Everyone, I'm joking, but you know, that is actually the reality of it, which is, you know, like the driving I have seen on the way up here, the amount of pulling out on me, not indicating anywhere, taking the wrong lane. Like on the motorway here, I had someone overtake me when I was doing 70 in the left-hand lane. They then rammed themselves into the gap between me and the car in front of me, proceeded to then brake heavily because, you know, they realised that the car in front was not going as quick as they were. Then went past the 300 yard, the 200 yard and the 100 yard board for the, you know, for taking the junction off the motorway, and then indicated at 5 yards before it. It's just like, why did you even bother indicating? And I don't feel like these people are doing it because they're being lazy. I just don't think they know how to use the roads. Yes, when you're on a dual carriageway or a motorway, those 3 ticks, 2 ticks, 1 tick boards on the side of the road are when you should start indicating 300 yards, 200 yards, 100 yards. It gives you about 20-30 seconds at most to let people know what you're going to do, get, you know, the bearings around you, and yeah, it's there for a reason. It's not, indicate manoeuvre is not the thing you're supposed to do. But of course, I would love to know your thoughts on it. I can only look at it from my perspective. I can't look at it from the perspective of a lorry driver or a bus driver or someone that lives in London, where this is far more, you know, impactful to you, because pedestrians and cyclists are on the road an awful lot more than I have to deal with them. Sure, in the daytime here we've got cyclists and pedestrians, but it's not a huge amount at night, and it's nothing compared to places like London. So please put your input in, and if there's any of the rules that I've kind of missed the point of why they're particularly bad, let me know. As I said, my interpretation thus far has just been that they're just a sort of gentle enforcing of pre-existing rules, or at least best practice. And obviously as well adding on the hierarchy of road users. I don't know if this is true, by the way, but the 2 speed cameras you see when you're coming into Portsmouth, apparently, they're not active. I always thought they weren't active, and apparently they are not active, and there's some injunction that was done many years ago that meant that there couldn't be a live speed camera in the city of Portsmouth, and it has never been overturned, which means that none of the cameras in Portsmouth are speed cameras. Has anyone else heard about this? I mean, I found one corroborating sort of discussion on a forum somewhere from years ago. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one that they've been there forever. I've never heard of anyone getting caught by one, or I've never seen one flash. I've got to say, for a February evening ride, or night ride, this is actually pretty nice. Now that drizzle's stopped. And the distance you have to give to pass a cyclist is now like, you know, it's like a car's width. I've always done that. I've always given them as much room as I possibly can. One of my pet peeves, I do have to say, when it comes to sort of, you know, people giving way to things, is that when there are cars on the opposite side of the road and cars have to come onto your side of the road to overtake them, that's fine, you know, that's fine. But when there's a car doing it, they tend to hold back because there isn't any room. They know there isn't any room to get through. But when it's a bike, they're like, oh, I can fit. You could ride right in the gutter up against that curb, you know, on the drain covers and on the off-camber part of the road, just so I can not stop where you have right of way and get, and, you know, they never bring that one up. Well, there you go. There's my thoughts to the changes on the highway code. As I say, I was going to do sort of a rule-by-rule explanation, realised there's not much point because it's quite straightforward and it's mostly common sense and it's just more of a reinforcement on what you kind of should have been doing anyway, with a few small changes. Wrong lane. Anyway, until the next one, bye bye.